Let's be honest, this is an extremely vague part of the course. The whole business course in general is really vague, but this is especially vague. Everybody's confused, all the teachers are confused, all the students are confused, everything's out of whack. Don't get confused because this video will hopefully take you through CUEGIS and show you how to prepare a case study in both an efficient and smart way. So CUEGIS is basically IB's attempt for you to apply your business knowledge in the real world. Essentially, they want you to prove that the course content is actually applicable in the real world. So all they want you to do, really, is to just draw parallels between the business that you choose and the course. That's it. It isn't some foreign concept, it's just an acronym that nobody gets. So you try to pick one or two, preferably two, businesses, and find course content that they've essentially used in real life. And they group this in all these concepts: change, culture, ethics, globalization, innovation, and strategy. And if I were to describe them in a really fast way, change is basically how the business has reacted to both changing internal and external forces. Culture, the corporate culture that your business has. If you were to work for a business, you know if the business has a very strict or lean culture, autocratic, laissez-faire. Also, the culture of the external environment, the culture of the industry that the business operates in. Ethics, how have ethical considerations affected the business? Is the business so, quote unquote, ethical? Globalization, obviously the business must be operating differently now than it was 15 years ago because things have changed so much in terms of information and connectedness. So how has globalization affected that? Innovation, the business has changed. Has the business changed typical products or typical processes? For example, in the tech industry, it's very common for businesses to disrupt the whole industry, and that means they make extremely radical changes. So that and strategy, how has the business made adjustments to achieve both their short-term and long-term plans? But these are things you can get when you search online, right? That's basically the gist of QGIS. So you understand the concepts. Now we search on Google about your business. Okay, no, that's not what we do. That's where everybody gets it wrong. They go on Google after they understand just the basic meaning of the concept and they type something like Apple culture, Microsoft innovation, and then they'll find whatever articles they can and write these as points to learn. But this is wrong. The whole point of QGIS is not to check whether you understand a business and what they've done and link it to some general concept like change, but what specifically they've done that has parallels with the course content and its corresponding concept. So here's an excerpt from the 2016 name marking scheme that I think will help clear things up. You notice what it says. The expectation of the use of an organization is to allow assessment of the depth of candidates' understanding through their ability to apply the concepts and their knowledge. Assessment of candidates' knowledge of the organization itself is not an aim of the assessment. So basically what they're trying to tell you is that, yeah, you should know an organization, but what we're really looking for is the way you apply that knowledge and how it relates to course content. And this is further emphasized when you look at the rubrics that they use to grade your answer. And now we have criterion A and criterion B. If you look at criterion A, it talks about how it assesses how the candidate demonstrates knowledge about the given concepts and the relevant business management content. And then it's like criterion B is again the same thing, given concepts and relevant business management content and the application to the real world organization. So you notice there's never really a descriptor of purely assessing your knowledge about the business you choose. It's always have to do it with the content and the concept. So that's what you need to emphasize, how the concept and the content relate to each other. And when I say content, I mean the business and management course. So the IB doesn't want you to know every single globalization decision that a firm has made, but the globalization decisions they've made that are in relation to the course. For example, how has globalization affected their organizational structure, which is related to 2.2, or how has it affected the areas in which the business is located, which is 5.4. So the most important thing is linking the concept to the course content. So how do you prepare an organization to use in your test? Well, essentially what you want to do is build a knowledge base of your organization so that any question that has anything to do with any course content, you'll be prepared. You want to do a QGIS in every single unit. But here's the thing, that takes a lot of time. And for the most of us, we don't have a lot of time. So I'm going to show you how to build a knowledge base with likely corresponding course content in an efficient manner to save you time and help you study in a really efficient way. So the first thing you need to do is pick an industry you know. Like for me, I knew tech. Okay, I was the tech guy. I already knew quite a bit, so I knew what to search and what to find online. Even if a question came that I didn't really know much about, I already had a basic awareness of the industry, so I could literally think out of the top of my head and answer the question. For example, if you like makeup, do something like L'Oreal, do something like Mac. The less known your business is, honestly, it's easier to give vague evidences and apply to the content. But even aside from that, there's no right business. Just pick something that you can link to the course. That's the most important thing. You don't have to, search online, go on IB Survival, is this a good business? No. Just pick something that relates to the course. If you can't think of anything, go with tech because there's just so much happening in terms of publicity, innovation, gossip, and that's happening in Silicon Valley that you'll find it extremely easy to find the information you need online. Okay, so how do you prepare? So I'm going to take you to your IB Business Subject Guide, and it's this document here that nobody really reads. Okay, so when you go to the guide, what you want to do is scroll all the way down to the CUEGIS section of your guide. So it's over here. So if you notice over here, it shows every single concept and the likely corresponding course content. For example, culture, there is 2.4, which is motivation, and that's a likely corresponding course content to culture. If you look at something like change, 2.2, organizational structure. So if you were to take the example of change in 2.2, what should I do now? So what I would recommend you to do is go to a website called news.google.com. And when you go to this website, you type in your business, for example, Apple, and you type in the corresponding heading from the course content. For example, organizational structure was 2.2, so I'll type in Apple's organizational structure, right? And then you go and then you sift through all these articles. You don't have to read them thoroughly, but sift through them, get a general overview until you find one that you can see really brings out course content. For example, I looked at this before. So I found this article before, and when I looked through it, it was really nice because it talked about how Apple has to, in effect, change its organizational structure in order to make itself handle decision making much more quicker. So when you find an article like this and it talks about decentralizing, you can bring out really good course content. For example, the pros and cons of flat versus tall organizational structure, the pros and cons of decentralizing, and you see how it applies to the real world. So these are the types of gems that you're trying to find, these type of articles that can really pinpoint you to specific learning objectives in the course content. And what I mean by specific syllabus content is that if you go back to the guide, we're talking about organizational structure. You go to 2.2 and you find it, and then you'd see it talks about span of control, levels of hierarchy. So you can bring all these things, right? You can bring out the pros and cons of flat and tall organizational structures, of decentralization. So these are the type of articles you want to look out for, articles that can really go specific to the corresponding syllabus link. Also, I want to make a point that you should be reasonable when you're doing this. For example, when you look at organizational objectives in 1.3, it talks about a SWOT analysis. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to make a SWOT analysis of your business, but look at the concept of a SWOT. A SWOT just means looking at the internal and external nature of the business, right? The internal and external factors. So how has looking at the internal and external factors of a business helped it? And 1.3 is related to change, so that's a very easy concept to link this part of the course to. Another thing would maybe be ethics. Ethics is related to final accounts. Now you think about final accounts and ethics. Maybe the business resides in a land where the government doesn't really check whether the final accounts are up to date or accurate, so they have a chance to overstate their expenses and reduce their profits, and they could do that. So how does ethics affect that? The point is I'm trying to make, look at the principle of the learning objective. Also, I want to make one part of this whole syllabus thing very clear. If you notice, when we look at the CUEGIS part, it says examples of content that allows for the exploration of concept. This list is not prescriptive, and what this means is that this isn't every single syllabus content that is related to this concept. And this is true because technically you are supposed to do a CUEGIS on every single heading, But here's the thing, when I examined the May 2016 and November 2016 paper, I found that the marking scheme included the course content specifically related to that concept, or it allowed any answer. So even if you're doing this, if you're doing what I'm telling you to do, which is go to only the relevant syllabus points, that is gonna drastically increase your odds of getting a right one, especially when you're strapped for time. And also remember one more thing, even if supposing a question comes out where you have to relate a specific content link with a concept that you haven't prepared, maybe it wasn't this table, just by searching so many articles on the internet, just by going and reading so much, you're building that knowledge base that we were talking about earlier of your business, so that even if a question came, it's really not that hard to maneuver and kind of conform whatever things you know about your business to that concept. And we know it's all possible. You just need to have that really, really rock solid base of your business, which I'm showing you, the structured path on which to search about your business and related to the content, that's going to give you that base, that rock solid base, so that whatever question you come out, you have that ability to score top marks. And that's basically what I wanted to share with you about QGIS. So hopefully this helped. This is my second time recording, so hopefully I did a better job than my last. That last one was really messed up. So if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. If you want to know how to structure your answer in a really good format, because that's criterion D, if I'm not mistaken, structure, Tim Woods has an amazing article on the way you can structure your QGIS answer that takes into consider the other three criterions. So I'd really, really recommend you to do that. So hopefully that helped. Like I've said again, anything, let me know. And I just hopefully, I've been able to give you that ability to make just a bit more sense of this vague course. So have fun.